Literally every direct report I had was like, there's no way you can't do this. We can't do this. How about first? And if this thing implodes, if this turns out to have been a terrible idea, it's my name on the line. There is nothing you can't get through. There's nothing you can't solve. If you have strengthened the muscle of those 4 agreements, there are still ties amongst that group of people that I don't think will ever be broken because of that work.
Whether you want more innovation more easily, you're feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we'll uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead today. And joining me is Dr. Amanda Lynne Smith. Amanda is a heart-led, dynamic, and visionary C-suite executive with 25 years of expertise, spanning education management, operations, and workforce development. A strategic cross-sector leader in online education and higher education innovation, she is passionate about driving student success, improving workforce outcomes, and shaping the future of learning through technology-driven solutions and transformative product development. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Michael. Happy to be here.
I am so excited for our conversation today. When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self and bringing that into everything that you do might be a valuable approach?
I would like to say that I had this figured out from the very beginning of my career, but I didn't. When I look back, in like my early years of primary education, teaching young children, and then moving into higher ed and managing teams, leading organizations. Again, like I'd say the first 15 years of my career, I was a little bit of a workaholic, right? Like I poured everything I had into it, morning, noon, and night. It was not unusual for me to, be to the classroom hours before school started, or, be to the office hours before the day started, and kind of burn the midnight oil as well. And I look back on some of that time, and I'll admit that I think I held that standard, and I held that bar kind of to everyone around me as well. Like I kind of expected that, like, if I was doing it, everybody else was going to do it, and it honestly wasn't until 2020. It was when COVID happened that, like many people, across the world, I had the opportunity to just take a breath and take a step back and really think about what matters. And so much of that came from this deep desire to take care of the people that I was responsible for, right? My colleagues, my team members, in a spirit of wanting my team and people that I work with to be able to do great work, to be able to take care of the things that they're responsible for, and to be able to take care of each other, and to be able to take care of our customers or our students. People needed to take care of themselves first. And it was during COVID, like for the first time in maybe my life, but really in my career, that this idea of, like, you have to take care of yourself first if you're going to pour into other people. If you're going to be a heart-led leader and you are going to pour into other people, you have to make sure your cup is full. And if you need to fill your cup, then you need to stop and think, like, what's really important to me? What does that for me? Right? Like, is it going for a walk with my significant other? Is it Is it spending time with my kids playing outside? Is it taking my dog for a nice walk in the middle of the afternoon? Is it a yoga class? Is it a run in the morning? What is the thing that helps each person kind of refresh and reset and make sure that their cup is full? And that was for me, Michael, like that was the moment. Like that was the chapter. And a lot of this evolution happened in my own personal life as well. I've ridden horses competitively my entire life. Horses have always been a really important part of who I am on a personal and spiritual level, for that matter. And in 2020, I had the opportunity to move to Kentucky. I was living in Dallas, and the company went remote, and I had the opportunity to move to Kentucky. And I found myself, call it March, April of 2020, living on a 200-acre horse farm in this beautiful, tiny little cabin that looked like something out of a Thomas Kincaid painting, overlooking this pond with geese and polo ponies in the background. And there was this unbelievable integration that started to happen, where all of the parts of who I was and who I am started to come together in the most profound way. And it became like a daily thing that I'd get up in the morning and I'd, pour my coffee and I'd sit at the kitchen table and, we'd knock things out, all kinds of incredible transformative work, just knocking things out, call it noon, 1 o'clock. And I'd take a breath, I'd take a break, I'd put on my riding boots, I'd walk across the pasture, I'd go jump on my horse for half an hour, take my boots back off, sit back down at the kitchen table, and get right back to it till 5 o'clock. Right. And that moment of like being able to like take that breath and find the thing for me that let me refill my cup, gave me even more momentum, even more desire, even more passion to help my team members and the people I was responsible for, the people that I was responsible for taking care of, find that thing for them. And again, like that chapter and that moment and those experiences will forever change the way that I think about taking care of people, taking care of teams, and leading.
So it was literally COVID that caused/enabled this, because COVID caused your company to go to remote, which made it easy for you to move across the country and have this massive transformation.
Yeah, it was wild. There was like all of these little pieces that were they were serendipity, and at the same time, it's like the silver lining or the glass is half full. Like that was a really, really challenging time, right? For everybody. This idea of isolation and, there was a lot of fear, a lot of unknowns. And yet like there were these beautiful kind of silver linings. And I personally really tried to look for them. And I personally really tried to help my team and my colleagues and the people, again, that like I was responsible for, the people that I was arm in arm with, also find those things. And again, not just not just because of the work, but because, again, like this like, that I can never unsee again, of like, you have to first take care of yourself. It's the most important thing. And if you're doing that, then you really can take care of other people. And at the end of the day, that's all any of this is about. Any of the work we do, it always comes down to taking care of people.
Absolutely. Some people call this selfish, that you're putting yourself before anyone else. And I've always believed that selfish, or any other word, it's not a bad thing or a shameful thing. It's critical. I've never understood why, when on an airplane, when the oxygen mask comes down, everyone understands I have to put my oxygen mask on first so I can help everyone else do that. And somehow that doesn't translate into any other part of the world for most people. feel like, well, I have to help everyone else before I can help myself. And it's, as you say, it's absolutely critical. If I'm not filled up, if I don't have the energy to do what I'm here to do to help everyone else, then I'm going to not be able to help them. And then they're not going to be able to do their job as well because I'm not doing my part in helping them do that. And it just rolls out, and soon no one can do anything very well. And we're all super struggling. Where if we
Yeah.
just take those moments to do what fills us up at the times that are best to do that, then everything else, like you experienced, half an hour writing
Yeah.
during the day and get to go full bore all the rest of the time.
I couldn't agree more. And I also think, it's like this paradox of like, again, so this idea of like, reaching for the oxygen mask, but it's like not as singular as that. Because I think like the giving permission, that like the being surrounded by people, friends, family, colleagues, loved ones who give you permission to take care of you. And it's a form of love, really, right? Like it's literally a form of loving other people. And maybe that feels like a strong word in the workplace, right? But like to give permission to say, I want you to take care of you. I want you to take the time. I want you to find the time. I'm going to give you the time. I don't want you to have to ever apologize for finding the time to take care of you, because I know, I trust that if you're taking care of you, you're going to be able to take care of everyone around you. And that's what heart-led leadership is about. And so it's this like, it's like the infinity, sign, right? Like
Yes,
it's like it's a never ending thing. It's hard to decide where it starts and stops. And I think we all play a role in supporting each other in that way.
absolutely. What has helped you give yourself and then others that permission where for 20 years you found it so challenging to do that for yourself, let alone maybe harder for yourself even than for others?
It's a really good question. You know, I think like the desire that is inside of me to build camaraderie on teams with teams and be a part of leaving the world a little better than we found it together. Like the desire to do it together is again what actually like spurred me or created the most motivation or passion for making sure I was taking care of me first so that I could take care of these people, right? And vice versa. Again, I go back to COVID and I remember, how many people were struggling, like really struggling. And how many people on my again like that were a part of my team, my colleagues, my coworkers, and not just people I was responsible for, like directly, like direct reports, right? But like my peers and the leaders that I worked with, right? Like everybody was really struggling, and there was a lot of pain, and there was a lot of sadness, and there was a lot of fear, um, and I couldn't disconnect these things that we're talking about. Like it became more and more clear that like I have a major responsibility in this too. Like I need to take a breath. Like for the first time in 10 or 15 years, like I felt like I could really breathe. I felt like things really slowed down. I felt very present. And and I was feeling those things. I was having that experience because for the first time in my entire adult life, my entire professional career, I had this ability to live at these intersections of like these things that were a part of my essence, like being out in the country and breathing fresh country air and looking out at wide open spaces and finding time like every day to be in the presence of these incredible soulful animals we call horses. And And it just became its own meditation. Like I thought about it a lot. I had thought so much about, like, I have so much more capacity when I'm doing these things. And for the first time, like, again, I had permission, right? Like the world suddenly shifted. And all of a sudden, these pieces of my life started to come together. And like I said, once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And it was its own form of like me giving me permission so that I could then give the people that I care about permission, so that they could give the people that they care about permission. Right. And a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my teammates and people I worked closely with would tell me that, like, they were having these conversations at the kitchen table at dinner. They were having conversations between spouses, like with their children. Like there was this ripple effect of, because we were having conversations as a professional team about these things, that people were then taking that to their family and their loved ones and having conversations there. Right. And it just, I don't know, it became a very profound thing. And like I said, it'll forever be a part of how I think about what really matters.
That that ripple effect is always amazes me when we do it consciously, like you were doing with your team, and then they were doing with their families and friends. It's incredible. So just because I talk with you about it, and then you talk with your team about it, and each of them talks with their friends and family about it, pretty soon the entire world is talking about this, because everyone has someone else that's not in that chain yet. And even when we don't do it this explicitly, the shifts that we make with ourselves radiate out and affect the people around us, and then they shift a little bit and that radiates out as well. So even if we haven't given ourselves permission to do this explicitly, just by making these shifts ourselves, we help the entire world shift to be a little more that way.
Yeah, I agree.
So one way to describe it, we're talking about this, is building cultures where people feel safe and empowered to bring their unique talents and their unique way of working and ways to refill into everything that they do. Now that you've realized how important this is, how has this shifted, and what are you doing now to build and strengthen and help those cultures endure?
Yeah, so again, kind of pulling on this thread or this timeline that I would, that dates back to COVID, like 2020 forward. There were some other interesting things that kind of transpired that have continued to become a part of, or be a part of, how I think about building culture and building strong teams. And it's twofold. One is something we'll call courageous conversations, and the other is a restaurant motto that says we're all family here. And so I'll tell you about the first one first. So the courageous conversations piece. So as all of us remember, during COVID, there was also some really complicated social pieces that were happening, right, socially in our communities across the country, across the world, and that conflict, that social conflict, and the complexities, uh, the trauma, the disappointment, the fear, um, the inequity that came with a lot of what was happening then, could not be separated from the lived experiences of the people that we work with, right? And I found myself supporting a very diverse team that was really struggling, sometimes very silently and sometimes very loudly, with what was happening in our local community and in communities across the world. And in a conversation that I'm never going to forget, where I was reminded that I might see things through a particular lens. And let's just call that lens white privilege. That I might see the world through biases, unconscious, right? I felt called to create a space amongst the people that I called friends and colleagues to talk about it. And I drew from some experience I had during my early teaching years when I was teaching third grade in Colorado. I was a part of a group of teachers that helped to facilitate these workshops, these faculty workshops called Courageous Conversations About Race. And it draws from Glenn Singleton's work. And the intention of the work then, in these school districts were to help primarily white teachers have heightened awareness in their teaching practices and, in their lived experiences with their students' lived experiences in very diverse classrooms. And from that work, there are 4 agreements. And those agreements are to stay engaged, speak your truth, expect and accept non-closure, and to experience discomfort. The order of, I got them slightly out of order. It's stay engaged, speak your truth, experience discomfort, and expect and accept non-closure. And, in a moment I look back and I think like, it's kind of wild that we leaned into this together, but there were, I don't know, let's call it probably 50 team members, maybe a few less. That might be a little high, right? That were a part of my like direct kind of like responsibilities under my umbrella. And, even when we first started talking about doing this, it was like me with my like direct reports, like the 4 or 5 leaders on the team. And I brought this idea. I was like, what if, once a month we set aside an hour and we have a conversation, and it's very guided and it's very facilitated. And we create a space to have conversations about the things that are happening in the world because they're happening. And by pretending like they're not is not helping anybody, right? People are highly distracted in their work. They're, again, everyone was carrying like the weight of the world on their shoulders. And then you expect people to come to work and put a smile on their face and like just do the thing. Like it's, that's not how it works. And so I I raised this with my leaders. I was like, what do you think if we do this? And Mike, I'll tell you, like literally every direct report I had was like, there's no way you can do that. You can't do this. We can't do this. Like, does HR know we're doing this? Is HR going to be there? Like this is the whole company doing this? Because we can't do this. This is not going to be a good idea. And I was like, I'll tell you what, it's like, I don't know, we're riding out into the frontier. I'll go first. And if this thing implodes, if this turns out to have been a terrible idea, it's my name on the line. I'm on the line. Nobody else is. It's me. So I'll go first. And so we started to do this work once a month, very guided. Again, there was like Glenn Single, there's a whole framework around this, right? Like there was plenty to draw from in terms of like, how do you keep these kinds of conversations on the rails? And we did. And I believe, and if you were to talk to any of my colleagues or teammates who were a part of this work, we did it for 3 years, I think, like 3 straight years of like once a month committed to the work. The outcomes of that were just beyond your imagination in terms of how the culture of the team was strengthened. Because when you lean into these kinds of things, and you think about those 4 agreements, you think about staying engaged, speaking your truth, experiencing discomfort, and expecting and accepting non-closure. And then you think about any problem that could potentially pop up in the workplace, anything where you're coming at it from 2 different angles or 5 different perspectives, and you're storming and norming and all the things. There is nothing you can't get through. There's nothing you can't solve and that you can't find common ground on. If you have strengthened the muscle, if you've worked the muscle of those 4 agreements in relationship to topics that are really personal, right? Like where you're really challenged to like have to see the world through somebody else's lens and have to find compassion and have to find understanding and have to be courageous and brave and again like sticking to or saying like this is my lived experience but I hear your lived experience, right? And like that, it's complicated and messy and really beautiful. And I watched a group of people, 40, 50 some odd people, do this work with such commitment and such love. And then I watched them work together in the coming years on 1,000 different things, right? Like just all the day-to-day stuff, the big stuff, the little stuff. And there are still ties amongst that group of people that I don't think will ever be broken because of that work. And when you think about what that does for a culture, again, like you talk about culture building and team building, it's nothing like it in the world. The second piece that I mentioned is the restaurant motto, "We're all family here." So the story there is that my younger sister, is a senior executive for Olive Garden that is owned by the Darden parent corporation. And my sister has been an inspiration to me my entire life. She might be the little sister, but like really, she kind of acts like the older sister. She's been such an example to me, and in particular, her people leadership. So she works for a company whose motto is "We're all family here," right? And she literally is responsible for thousands and thousands of people. Like, I thought I had a big job, with a group of 100 or 150. Like, we're talking thousands and thousands of people that she's directly responsible for. And over the years, I have watched her in awe pick up the phone at all times of the day. We might be driving to go pick up our kids from school, or she's in the middle of making dinner. She's got like a kid on one hip and she's like stirring the pasta with the other, and she's taking the call, whatever. Right. And it's a frontline, cook or a dishwasher or one of the waiters or waitresses. I've lived the experience of witnessing her. I bared witness to her open door policy of we're all family. Olive Garden, Darden, specifically Olive Garden, has this, a bit of this sentiment of we hire for life. Now, that doesn't mean that like people don't leave. Sometimes because they want to, and sometimes maybe because it's best for everybody. But there is this sentiment of like, once you walk through that door, you're a part of the family. And we're going to take care of you like family. If you're going to expect your people to take care of your customers like family, if that's your motto, we're all family here, which means as a customer, as I walk in, I sit down, I order dinner, I feel like I'm part of the family, then your team better feel like they're part of a family, right? Like you can't give something or create something if you're not living it, if your teams aren't living it. And so this idea of taking care of people like their family, like they are family, is very close to my heart, and the way that I lead and the way that I think about building culture and the way I think about building camaraderie. And it all goes back to like, well, why do we do these things? Like, what's the point of doing these things? Because if you want whatever the thing is that you're doing to make a lasting impact on the people and the customers and the communities, and in the case of education, the students that we serve, there better be a whole lot of goodness, a whole lot of warmth and commitment and passion, and I even use the word love, amongst the people that are delivering that experience to all those people, right? And so, again, those two things are very close to my heart in how I think about culture building.
How do you explain the business value of all this squishy people culture building stuff where it's, yes, when you do the work 3 years later, you have a super close team that are friends for the rest of their lives. And when you're starting out on that, or you're convincing your manager, your board of directors, whoever you need to get started, your team that you're doing this with, how do you talk about how this is going to help the company achieve its goals?
So easy for me. It's funny. I had one of my supervisors. If he ever listens to this podcast, he's going to know exactly who he is. Literally ask me, like, what is the value of, like, can you describe to me the company value of this work that you're doing? Like, how does this impact the bottom line? And it's easy. Like, look, happy people stay. When you retain people, it's tons of cost savings. The cost of recruiting new employees, onboarding them, the cost of that to a company, the cost of losing people, the cost of people leaving really unhappy, litigious situations, right? Like, and then there's the customers. Happy people equal happy customers, right? Like if you have people that are dedicated and staying, they're committed, they feel trusted, they feel cared for, they feel valued, they're going to make the customer feel cared for and valued. And the customer retention on that has a monetary value to the top and bottom line, doesn't it? Right? And so, you could continue to pull that thread. Teachers, instructors, faculty, right? Like if they feel cared for, if their day-to-day work experience and professional experience is better for the time that is spent, like building camaraderie and building trust and making sure people feel heard and seen, guess what? They're going to make sure that the students that they take care of feel heard and seen. They're going to be more patient. They're going to give more time. They're going to be more present. They're going to give more of themselves. And then what does that equate to? Students being retained, right? Students completing their programs and graduating, like students staying. Like the number one driver of student success, the number one driver of retention on campus or online, number one driver is the relationship between the faculty and the student. It's number one. If the student stays or goes. You could build massive retention teams, and institutions do, and they're helpful. They're very helpful. They're very important, especially when you're supporting massive bodies of students But the day-to-day of the instructor, the faculty, connecting with each and every student that they are responsible for, that's the number one driver of retention and outcomes. And again, it's this ripple effect. It's what we talked about at the very beginning, right? Like having a conversation at this level that then somebody has at the kitchen table with their loved ones, and then they have at the coffee shop with their friends, right? It's the same. If leadership sets that example and takes care of its people in these ways, those people are going to take care of the work that they're responsible for, the colleagues that they're responsible for, the customers they're responsible for, the students they're responsible for. It trickles the same way. So I could
It
argue the
does.
value in it all day long.
It really shows how the squishy people stuff shows up even in what might seem hard, unemotional as technology, software, systems. That if the people who are building software and systems, even if you never interact with any of them directly, if you're buying the thing online and everything's online, you never talk to a person. The difference between the people building that and providing it to you being happy and joyful, able to talk, have the tough conversations, versus the teams that are the opposite of that, incredible. Comes through.
Yeah. It does. 100%. Makes all the difference.
So we've talked a lot today about helping people find their way through change, uncertainty, overwhelm, all the things that came with COVID and the things going on in the world at that time and now. What else do you do to help people find their way through all this and experience all this craziness and still be able to settle back into the joy that you help them create?
All of these things are connected. It's hard to like kind of pull one piece apart from the other. But when I think about like, how do I continue to help people navigate, the complexity that is the world that we live in, the complexity of the work that we do? There's always ambiguity. There's always uncertainty. There's always unknowns. And again, I think, the answer might seem overly simple. It goes back to this holding space for people. And then in those conversations, and maybe it is a conversation where somebody, respectfully sends me an email or a Teams message or a text message saying, hey, Amanda, when you get a few minutes, can you give me a call? And I'm like, absolutely. I'm wrapping up the day today at 6:30. I'll call you at 7:30, if that's okay, whatever, right? Whatever the thing is, like, I'll make the time. If I had $1 for like every time I've just like walked circles around this house in the evenings, talking to somebody, right? Like no longer on the computer, no longer on Teams, no longer on Zoom, just good old fashioned phone call. There should be like trenches, like right around the house from that, from the hours kind of spent over the years of making that time. And so then what do those conversations sound like? It's like, Michael, like regardless of what's happening, whatever the thing is, it could be a conflict with a colleague. It could be like somebody's struggling to get something done, or they're coming at it from different places, or, there's been a misunderstanding, or it could be a frustration, something's happening with a customer, a client, a student, whatever the thing is. It could be that somebody's, they're going through major life changes personally, and they're thinking about making a change, and maybe they're thinking about leaving the company, or they're figuring out what their future looks like at the company, whatever the thing is. I feel like 9 times out of 10, the the topics, the themes, the mentorship that, at least for me, that I often provide to people kind of comes from, a handful of places. And it's really kind of fundamental stuff. Like, it's, about staying true to yourself, and like staying true to your values. It's being a good person. It's being kind, like kind of going out of your way to take the higher road and to do the right thing, like really operating with integrity and honesty and transparency. Um, it's encouraging people to speak up. It's like back to the 4 agreements, like speak your truth, like use your voice, use it respectfully, use it kindly, use it transparently, use it lovingly, use your voice. There's a bit of, just remember that like you can only control what you can control. And that there is some of this, like sometimes regardless of like what your belief system is, you have to like give it to God, for lack of a better word, right? But like the sentiment of that sometimes you have to have faith. You have to know that you can't control everything, that you won't always have the answers, that you have to lean into what you can control, and what you can control, you manage with as much grace and compassion and integrity as possible. I think in today's world, like there's so much going on all around us. It's a wild time. I think there's a lot to be said for practicing gratitude, lending a helping hand, like just where you can. Like if you can help, if you can just do some small thing, make some person's day just a little bit better. Just give of yourself a little bit. Like it's what's the, and again, without sounding like totally, I don't know, because this is so true for me. So I'm going to use the word cheesy, like without sounding cheesy, but because like I recognize it could be people that are like, she is so rose-colored glasses. Like there is something to be said for the like be the change that you want to see in the world, and that applies to every circumstance. Like if you zoom out and take a look at whatever the thing is, like how would you want to see that thing handled? What would be the best outcome? And how would you get there? And then be that, right? Be that driver, be that change maker, be that heart-led person that leans in with a little bit more grace and a little bit more love and a little bit more compassion, a little bit more patience, not just for whatever it is you're dealing with, but for yourself as well. Right? And so, again, it's like I said, Michael, if I had $1 for every time, over many years that I've taken those phone calls, the way that I've watched my sister take those phone calls, we're all family here. It's the sentiment of a lot of what I share as a leader, as a fierce driver, as a fierce operator, as somebody who is also known for getting stuff done, right? Like we've spent a lot of time talking about all the warm and fuzzy things. I've said a whole lot of warm and fuzzy things. The two things, you can't separate the two things, right? And the reason that I've been successful and I've been able to get so much done and been able to help support teams through massive transformations while still maintaining that collaboration and camaraderie and culture is because of these things that I don't think you can separate at the end of the day.
I agree. It goes back to to your story at the beginning of discovering how to keep your own cup full so that you can help everyone else keep theirs full. If the only way to execute on the business goals and create the outcomes that the business is there to create for their customers is to help to keep our own cups full and help all of our people keep their cups full so that they can do all the work to create all of those things. And just as much as all of the operational have to write the code, do the reports, research the customers, whatever it is, all this squishy people stuff has to be in there in the right balance as well. And all the other things, remembering to take lunch, remembering to go use the restroom, remembering to stay hydrated during the day, and the things that our physical body needs, that our mental bodies need, that our spiritual bodies need, and that our emotional bodies need, have to keep all of those healthy and fulfilled in order to keep the business healthy and fulfilled.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. For people who'd like to follow up with you on leading those kinds of conversations, learning more about how to keep their own cup full in the midst of all the business craziness that they have to deal with day to day, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I'm definitely very reachable on LinkedIn, so always happy to connect there. I don't know if we'll share contact information as a part of this episode, but again, my email, alsmitheducation@gmail.com, is always a good way to reach me. And I really do, I welcome the continued conversations with anybody who's inspired by this episode and by the things we've been talking about today, Michael. I would love to continue these conversations with others for sure.
It's great. And I'll have those links in our show notes. Is there anything else, Amanda, you'd like to leave our audience with today?
I don't think so. Just that, again, this idea of, walking with the dreamers, the people with their head in the clouds and their feet on the ground, people that have a fire in their belly, people who want to really leave the world just a little better than they found it. That's what it's about. It's about finding those people. It's finding your tribe in any walk of life, taking care of them so they can take care of other people, taking care of yourself so you can take care of them, right? It's really, I think, at the end of the day, what it's all about. And I think when those things come together, when these ingredients that we've been talking about today, when they come together and they're present, I think that anything is possible. Genuinely, like mountains can be moved. And again, it all starts with relationships and again, just doing these things. There's a saying, the last thing I'll say is there's a quote, if you will, or a motto that one of the teams that I led for years that we'd always say as we signed off every Friday. And that was, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And so I'll leave you with that today, Michael, and I'll leave our audience with that. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other.
I love it. Thank you, Amanda, for this wonderful conversation today.
Thank you. It's been such an honor to be able to spend some time together. So thank you again.
You're welcome. And thank you, audience, for spending time with us today. Amanda and I would love to know what helps you keep your cup full. Thanks, and have a great day.